Welcome to another edition of Diamond Kings, the baseball talk show where we cover all the latest news and notes from around the league as part of the Sports Kings Media Network. We're the Reading Between the Seams blog on the Sports Kings Network. My name is David Whitlock from Houston, Texas. I'll be moderating the discussion. Before we go any further, we can't help but mention the passing of legendary San Diego Padres slugger, not really slugger, but one of the best hitters of all time, Tony Gwynn. His death was sudden indeed this week. He certainly leaves a hole in baseball. Hall of Famer, class act all the way, was an active coach at San Diego State. As I introduced each of the panelists, I'd like each of you guys to talk a little bit about what you remember about Tony Gwynn, how you see his legacy, and just any thoughts you might have on him and what he contributed to baseball, because it was a lot, and a lot of the generation of folks that are contributing to this panel and watch this show certainly remember him fondly in some of the great moments. So without further ado, we'll start this time with Kevin L. Smith from Rochester, New York. How are you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dave?
Doing great. What are your thoughts on Gwynn?
It's just really sad. It's like a piece of baseball died with him on Monday. It's just he's such a wonderful person to be around. Legendary hitter. That sweet swing he had. Just wonderful to watch. When I watched the 98 World Series, Padres Yankees, just seeing that swing as a kid was just like, it was incredible. And I never forget that swing. And I'm like, wow, this is a great hitter. Even though I was 6 years old, I just loved baseball so much. Seeing him swing and just incredible. And it's incredibly sad to see such a great player die at such a young age, 54, from something that has become just, I don't know, it's tough. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly echo those thoughts, and being a Houston Astros fan myself and seeing him play when we used to be in the NL West together, he would frequently come to town, and so he's one of the hitters that you enjoy paying to see play, because he break your heart with those key hits, and he certainly did in '98 when we had a strong team. The Astros had a strong team, and they beat us in the playoffs. We'll go next to Michael Prosser from Florence, South Carolina. Michael, how are you doing tonight? What are your thoughts on the passing of a legend?
Well, I mean, we here at Sports Kings, obviously, we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to the San Diego Padres organization, San Diego State, the Aztecs baseball team, and of course the Gwynn family, Tony Gwynn Jr., and everybody who's been affected. I mean, this was a huge loss. I mean, the baseball world lost a true giant. I got to think back to '98 when San Diego came into Atlanta, and all I can remember is Tony Gwynn and Ryan Klesko just destroying, just shredding Atlanta's pitching staff. And that was arguably from '95 to 99. That was some of the best Braves baseball ever, and San Diego just came in and wiped the floor with us. But again, obviously it's a tremendous loss, and we send our condolences. Tony, here's to you.
Yeah, certainly agree, and I know Tony Gwynn Jr. took leave of absence to obviously tend to the unfortunate situation in his family, and you're both right. He died so young. Next, let's go to Leroy McConnell III from Dallas, Texas. Leroy, your perspective on Gwynn and his contributions to the game.
Well, you have to remember that $1 million smile that Tony Gwynn had back then, the Jerry curl. It's funny, we never discussed Tony Gwynn when we talk about sport athlete. He had a love for basketball. 5'10", 5'11", point guard, led the state of California in his senior year in high school in assists. Actually went to San Diego State on the basketball scholarship. Growing up watching him play for the Padres, if you were a stat geek back then, like myself and David were, all you saw were in the National League, you saw batting average, Tony Gwynn at the top. American League, Wade Boggs, year after year after year. It is a loss, and he did die too soon. One incredible thing was I read when they were talking about Tom Gladden and Smokes and Maddox. Pedro, and also Kurt Schilling. He batted over 300 lifetime, 400 with Maddox and Smokes, but he 366 plate appearances. He struck out only 5 times against those pitchers. That's remarkable.
Yeah, it's a good point because it would be interesting in the day to watch Maddox and Gwynn square off, because what you'd see is Maddox, who typically outsmarts the hitter, with Gwynn, who is just as crafty and knows exactly what the pitcher's going to do. And normally good pitching beats good hitting, but I think Maddox never had overpowering stuff. He would do it with finesse and approach. And Gwynn
location.
And Gwynn would know that pitch was going to the outside corner. He'd swat it to left field and move on.
You knew it at 5.5 in between short and third base. You knew it was going right there and couldn't stop it.
That's right. And good point on his basketball acumen. On my personal blog, I wrote a best baseball/basketball athletes of all time that played both sports. You're talking like Danny Ainge, for instance, Kenny Lofton, and he was in that list of top 5 guys that played elite levels at both. Moving over to Kelvin LaPierre from Arkport, New York. How are you doing tonight? And any further Gwynn thoughts?
Doing good. I'm going to bust out about a bunch of stats about Gwynn. I mean, this is just stuff I remember growing up as a kid, but I got most of this from a Yahoo article. 19 greatest things people will remember about Tony Gwynn, and this is just a few of them I was able to write down. He's a 15-time All-Star, 3,141 career hits. He hit 19 straight seasons over 300. You're never going to see that again. There will be nobody ever that hits 300 over 19 straight seasons. That's only second to Ty Cobb in MLB history, and Ty Cobb had 23, I believe it was. In 1994, the strike year, Bagwell hit 368. Tony Gwynn hit 30 points higher with a 394. I mean, that's just crazy in a short. I mean, yeah, it's a shortened season. He might have cooled down at some point, but I don't think he would have. He only in 2,440 career games. How many multi-strikeout games do you think he had in 2,440 games?
50.
0.
No, he had
34 multi-strikeout games in 2,440 career games. You look at anybody else's stats now. That's crazy. Nobody's even close to that. He had 9 5-hit games, and that's second only to Pete Rose. Will you ever see that again? Maybe. The pitching has gotten better. And another thing, to Leroy's point, I remember seeing that same thing. I hate to do this being your Rangers fan, but he also did 307 against Ted Nolan back when he was with the Texas Rangers.
You mean Nolan Ryan?
Nolan Ryan, yep.
Yeah.
Wrong Rangers there, Calvin.
Right. Like that Nolan. No, hey.
Oh, wait, he was an Islander. Never mind.
He did that as an Astro, though. He didn't do it as a Ranger.
Yeah, I would say a lot of that was.
And then one more stat I got for you. From his age 1995, the age he was 35, to the year 2001, he hit 350 over that span. That is a guy who never stopped producing to the age of 41, losing vision in his, I believe it was his front eye, and he was a left-handed batter, so I believe it was his left eye he was losing vision in, and he still produced until the last day he played. That's just crazy.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a lot of stats that will never be matched.
Hey, he only struck out 434 career times.
Wow.
434. Crazy.
That's like 2 seasons for the Astros' Chris Carter.
I played 2 seasons that had him done.
Yeah, see, I'm saying 1 season for him combined. They'll both strike out more than that this year. So thanks for your thoughts on that. Again, echoing what all you guys said, condolences to the family, and baseball really did lose a legend, Tony Gwynn. His memory will live on. His smile will live on, as Leroy pointed out. He was a shining point in the game. And every time, he was a pleasure to see play, and he had a great attitude all along. So thanks again. We're going to move on to more news topics, and there is not any team in baseball that is more worthy of discussion right now than the Kansas City Royals. You're talking about a team that's won, it's either 10 or 11 straight. I've lost count. They've surged in front in the American League Central, which we talked about maybe a week ago as being potentially one of the strongest divisions in baseball. I was looking, and the Astros swept them in either late May or early June, and since then, amazingly, they haven't lost a series. They've beaten teams like the Blue Jays, the Cardinals, the Yankees, and they haven't looked back. And so we have to start this segment with our resident Royals fan, Leroy McConnell. What do you think about this, Leroy? Obviously, the Royals aren't going to win the rest of their games, but is this it? Is this their move? Are they headed to the playoffs? Has the team turned the corner? Go.
Heck, we haven't done anything in 30 years. That's the last time 85 was the last time we won the World Series. And we're doing this without George Brett, no Willie Wilson. We're doing this with Amos Otis. Hey, we're doing this without Brett Saberhagen. But basically, we're hitting the ball. We've always had good pitching, Jamie Shields, Guthrie. But this time we're starting to hit the ball. We're putting the ball in play. Hosmer and Billy Butner, Salvarez. How do you say his name? Perez, the catcher. Yeah, Salvador. Excuse me, Salvador Perez. Everybody's hitting the ball. Our leader, Alex Gordon. The last 3 days, going up in Detroit. Detroit has spanked us 5 games straight this season, and we've gone in there and whooped up on Detroit's ace Scherzer and Verlander, putting over 11 runs up back-to-back games. Had a pitching gym today. We won 2-1. It's exciting, and I think it all started around May 29th when they changed their hitting coach to Dale Swain from Chicago. And everybody's been lights out. So I know right now Detroit's still the crop of the division, and some might be saying we're playing over our heads, but I think we made a statement this week, and don't wake them up. Just leave them alone. Go Royals.
Yeah, you're right. It was the end of May. It was Memorial Day at the beginning of that week that the Astros swept them. They haven't looked back since. The Dale Swain hire was certainly key in that because they were hitting atrociously. And now
they're last in the league. Runs scored and home run percentage. So.
And if you look, this is a good time to get hot because they've won 3 straight in Detroit, the team they need to beat, and they've got 1 more tomorrow. So we'll see if they can sweep them. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the Royals? Are they for real?
I think they are. I have been waiting my entire life to see the Kansas City Royals in the playoffs. And it's been, 28 years since they've last been in the playoffs. So it's just, I like seeing the underdog team that have been in the postseason scene for a very long time, make an impact, kind of like the Pirates of last year. But even though they didn't go a long time with a losing streak like the Pirates did, because they had the 83 and 79 season in 2003 when Tony Pena was the manager, and just seeing this team have fun and bring it together all at once, and in a division that seems very open to me in a sense, except. But yeah, just seeing the Royals just do what they do and continue just like this. I'd like to see the Royal Blue in the playoffs this season with a Central Division championship banner in Kauffman Stadium. So I absolutely think they're for real.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. I'm with you. I like to see new teams in it. I like to see the Yankees, the Red Sox, the A's, and the Tigers. Those are great teams, and the Rangers in certain years. But year after year, it's time for some new blood. It'd be great to see both the Blue Jays and the Royals kind of mix it up with some of those teams and see if the younger teams can perform in the postseason where they don't have experience and go that way. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on the Royals?
Well, frankly, I don't think Kauffman Stadium's been this hot in 30 years. So that's awesome. I love this. I'm with Kevin on this one. I really like to see the underdog get in, especially if it's an underdog like the Kansas City Royals, who for the last 25 years or so have been the bottom of the barrel. I mean, let's not forget this was only a couple years ago, and 5 other guys. I think it was like Bubba Starling and 4 other guys were getting arrested for underage drinking, which is a huge black mark on the organization. But now they've rose over that. I thought Dale Sveum's hiring was a huge success. He simplified the game for this young team. He was on that Red Sox 04 team. He was a part of that team that won the World Series. He was hitting coach in 09 for the Milwaukee Brewers when, you had guys like Prince Fielder. Aramis Ramirez was crushing the ball that year. Ryan Braun, minus the PEDs. Question mark. It might have been happening, but, you never know. But, I really like this. I really do. Aside from the fact that there's maybe, 3 guys on that roster that, you may have heard of. I mean, besides a Mike Moustakas. Nobody knows who these guys are, and I love that. It's great. I hope they win. I hope they win the Central. I hope they get into the playoffs. I hope they go deep because this is a devoted fan base. You don't see a lot of Kansas City Royals fans outside of Kansas City, but when you see them, they're strong. They're flag-waving, let's go Royals type of people, and I admire that about their fan base, and I really hope that this team and Ned Yost are able to put it together and finally get these guys over the hump. But the biggest thing is they don't want to be the Pittsburgh Pirates and have that playoff hangover. They need to find consistency. If they can find the consistency with Max Scherzer being, demolished the other night by this Kansas City team, with Justin Verlander falling, you've got a Chicago team that's on the rise. Cleveland's kind of lying in the weeds a little bit. This division's theirs if they keep it up.
It's going to be a fun division to watch for sure because the Royals are surging now, but we don't know next week it might be the White Sox that surge or the Indians that surge or the Tigers.
Which by the way, Jose Abreu just hit his 20th home run today.
Nice.
If he keeps that up, it's very possible that you could see the Southsiders start surging as well.
Yeah. So finally, Kelvin, what are your thoughts on the Royals? Do you think they're a playoff bound?
I'm not going to say they're playoff bound yet because the Toronto Blue Jays just went through this same thing where they won like 15 out of 20, and now the Blue Jays are seemingly falling apart. They're not going to average, like right now during their 10-game winning streak, they're averaging 7.8 runs per game. You're not going to keep that pace up. Your pitching's eventually going to cool down, and you're not going to have a 2.45 starter ERA. It's not going to happen. It's going to turn at some point. Chicago's going to go on a run. Then Detroit's going to get hot. Verlander, I don't think he's going to figure it out and he's going to have to learn what CC Sabathia is learning is that your fastball is not there anymore. You're going to have to learn to pitch outside to inside and mix up everything to get through a game. The Scherzer thing, everybody knew that wasn't going to last from last year where you go 19-4 in your first 30 starts. It's just not going to happen. Detroit is missing Prince Fielder. I think they're finally realizing that contract and letting him go to Texas was a big mistake, even though he's out for the Rangers for the whole year. But I'm glad for Kansas City. More power to them. I've been a huge KC fan. I'm not like a huge diehard KC fan, but I root for the underdog like everybody else. You root for that underdog team to have a great season. I was rooting for Pittsburgh last year in the postseason. They got there. I was glad they did it, and now I'm rooting for KC to do it again, but am I going to jump on the bandwagon and say they're there right now? No, we're only getting to get ready up to the All-Star break. I'm going to say they're contenders, not pretenders. That's where I'll go with it. They're contenders, not pretenders.
But, hey, David, one thing is the concern about the Royals is their owner, David Glass. He doesn't spend money. The Royals need a big bat in that lineup. You're not going to hit many home runs outside of Kauffman Stadium, but we need a power bat. And, this is the time. And I don't even know if there's any bats available out there, but we need a bat more than we need a home run pitcher like Samardzija. We got to see if the Glass is going to spend some money, and I'm waiting to see if that happens or not.
Yeah, it would have been perfect if the Marlins, if they weren't hanging around in the NL West. The Royals could possibly go after Giancarlo Stanton, which would have been amazing.
They got pieces to trade. They got a nice farm system, but like I said, you're right about Miami. I mean, Stanton's going nowhere if they're in the race.
Yeah, they're going to need another bat, I think, to contend. It remains to be seen whether they'll make that strong move. I think it is before the All-Star break, so we're not ready to go all in yet, but I'd certainly watch it if I was them to look to potentially to make a move and there's no time like the now. The Texas Rangers found out that you can seem like you're going to make the playoffs every year, and then suddenly you get some injuries and you're out, and the next year you're below 500. Leroy, you mentioned Jeff Samardzija. Our next subject, we're going to talk about teams that could use an arm like Jeff Samardzija. He's certainly out there. The Cubs are willing to deal. He's unsigned. It makes sense for both sides. So what team do you think Jeff Samardzija would make sense? Be it your favorite team. Maybe you don't want your favorite team to go after him. This time we'll start with Kevin.
It's obvious that Jeff Samardzija is the bright spot in a struggling Cubs organization that is trying to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. And they think that giving away Samardzija will hopefully get something good in return for them. As for Samardzija, I feel like he will land at a very competitive place, one that just needs him as much as possible. And not to be biased as a Yankee fan, I do believe he'll land in New York because I feel like they have more to offer for him more than any other team because he'll be definitely worth the big bucks in the long run.
You think they'd try to re-sign him if they did trade for him?
I think that'd be good, especially having Tanaka and then have Samardzija as a number 1-2 guys in that rotation. That's just like, see you later. And then, especially if they're pitching in one series at the same time, it's like an automatic series win for the Yankees.
Wow, automatic win. No, he didn't have that many wins because the Cubs' offense is so lousy. But
yeah, but his ERA is crazy.
His ERA is crazy, and he is the kind of guy who gives you quality outings. So, Kelvin, what do you think about Samardzija? Where do you think he fits for any team?
I posted this on your status the other day when you said that Samardzija was on the trading block. I knew he was. They said this about a month ago that they were willing to trade him. Samardzija doesn't want to go anywhere, Cubs fans. Trust me, Samardzija doesn't want to go. He wants to stay there. He wants to be in Chicago. He's got a no-trade clause, I believe, in his contract. So he gets to choose what team he gets traded to. A lot of the team you're hearing a lot right now is Baltimore because Baltimore needs another pitcher. They thought adding Jimenez right before spring training started was going to be it, but you really haven't heard much about him. But I don't believe he's pitching that badly. You're hearing a couple of prospects, pitching arms out of the AAA system in Baltimore and a couple draft picks for Samardzija out of Baltimore. I personally think he fits in New York. I think if New York is all in, they're already over the salary cap. They're already broke their $198 million they wanted to get under. They're climbing back up, so you might as well make a push for this guy. Who does New York trade? Do you throw in a Chase Whitley who's come up from AAA this year and been productive? He was in the bullpen down in AAA. He comes in to be a starter for New York. He's in his last outing against Seattle. He's actually pitching right now too against Toronto. I don't have the score for that yet. But do you throw in a Chase Whitley and Solarte plus another prospect and a draft pick to bring him in and then sign him? Because he will. There's no way he doesn't sign in New York because he's on a contending team right off the bat. And then you put him with Tanaka, and you go Tanaka, him, CC when healthy, Nova next year when he comes back, and then you add that fifth piece if it's Phelps or you go out and bring in another pitcher, you promote a AAA pitcher. That Yankees pitching staff is going from from old to mediocre, medium depth, powerhouse pitching at the front, backloaded with talent at the end that can win ball games consistently.
Yeah, I think he fits their age profile. They've gone after more like 30-plus-year-old guys lately. I think they need to go after a late 20s guy because they've just gotten old. Like you said, they'll get younger and more effective.
The Tanaka moves me looking smarter and smarter every day. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's put him in a strong position. That was a really strong, and that can go either way. We've seen it go either way with Japanese pitchers, whether you sign a guy and it's just not effective. Hideki Arabu, for instance. But
Daisuke.
Michael, what do you think about Samardzija? Where do you think he ought to go? Where do you think the Cubs ought to trade him?
Well, let's try to sway him away from the AL East a little bit. I'm sending him to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first team that I had heard, hey, we want to come after this guy. And again, he's going to be on a contending team. San Francisco's, running away pretty much with that NL West right now. To be off the top of my head, I have no idea who they would give up for that. Obviously, it would probably be somebody of, some significance in the form of a prospect. But when you look at this Giants, this Giants rotation, yes, you have Tim Lincecum, but Tim Lincecum is getting older, and he has lost some of that, Lincecum magic that he had. Obviously, they did sign Tim Hudson in the offseason to a 2-year deal, but he's coming off of a broken leg, and he's almost 40. Barry Zito hasn't been Barry Zito since he moved from Oakland, and that was probably one of the worst contracts in MLB history. So they've got I'm sure they have the pieces in the minor leagues to do that. They didn't give it all away when they got Hunter Pence, which, by the way, I still think the Astros got the better end of that deal.
Absolutely.
So, I send him out west. I send him to San Francisco. I think, people start to realize how good of a pitcher Samardzija is and how good of an athlete he is. Because let's not forget, guys, this guy could have went in the first round of the NFL draft as a tight end out of Notre Dame. And he goes and plays baseball instead. So the guy's a tremendous athlete. He can pitch. He just doesn't have the team around him to do it. But, the real question is, when are the Cubs going to stop rebuilding?
Yeah, and that question, for the Astros was a couple years ago. They were basically trading anybody with value, Bud Norris, Wandy Rodriguez, you name it, they would deal them if they had any value whatsoever and just get whatever they could. And I think the Cubs probably got another year or two of that. Leroy, we haven't talked to you yet about Samardzija. You mentioned it before, but where do you think Samardzija should end up?
Well, I heard he turned down that $85 million 6-year contract. I think it was an insult. He probably could. The guy at Cincinnati, Holman Bailey's making 105. Matt Cain's making 127 million. So he probably feels that he should be at least making that type of money. What is Theo Epstein doing since he's a Cub? Chicago has money, don't they? Why are you lowballing this guy? I have to agree with Michael. If I'm San Francisco, I'm all over it. The Giants are all about winning the World Series right now. I think they should be the most aggressive ball team in the majors to solidify another chance of winning the championship. Heck, they got the best record in the Major League right now. The Royals, it would be nice for the Royals to get them, but like I said, they need bats. They got pitching. Pitching's no problem. San Francisco will be the ideal spot, and who knows, he could probably catch a pass or two from Colin Kaepernick in the fall. So I'll go with the Giants.
Yeah, good points. I think he might fit better out west than with the Yankees. I don't know if it's his propensity to wear his hair long or handle the pressure or not, but I like that Giants. Kevin, you had something to say?
It makes sense for him to go to San Fran because if you look at the pattern that San Fran has had a couple years, they won a World Series, they missed the playoffs. They won a World Series, they missed the playoffs last year, so they could possibly win the World Series this year. So I'm pretty sure Samardzija wants a ring.
Yeah, I think, and the Yankees are still a question mark. They still have injuries. Teixeira's getting hurt every other week. Jeter's on his way out.
Jeter's warming up, man. Jeter is heating up. He's got his average up to 275 from 260. He's getting back up there.
Good. I hope he bats 300. We got one more baseball topic, and that is going to be franchise players. If right now, today, June 18th, 2014, you could start your franchise around one player and one player only, who would that player be? And we're going to start with Kelvin this time.
Cespedes. Surprised right there, didn't I?
Yeah, I did.
Surprised you. Talked about him last week.
Yeah.
That cannon, the ability to hit the long ball, nobody talks about him much because he's playing in Oakland, and you don't watch him much because they play most of their games at 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast. So usually I'm in bed because I got to be up at 5 in the morning to go to work. But you get on and you just see, I just watch this guy when he plays against the Yankees. Yeah, he got shut down this last series against the Yankees. But this kid can hit. He can field. He's got the cannon to make up for his mistakes in the outfield. That's the guy that's the guy I build my franchise around. Trust me, it'd be worth it.
That sounds good to me. You sold me. Now somebody else convinced me. Michael, who do you think?
I know this is going to be a little cliche here, but I'm going with the 5-tool player Mike Trout. I mean, the guy can hit, the guy can run, the guy can throw. And I mean, I'm pretty sure, aside from Kelvin, it's probably, an easy consensus, but I juggled between him and Giancarlo Stanton. I really like building around a power slugging bat. If I was going to build a lineup, it'd be nothing but power. I usually do that anytime I'm, MLB 2K, whatever I'm playing, and I'm doing a fantasy draft or whatever. It's always power. I load it down from top to bottom, and my starting shortstop is always J.J. Hardy because he hits a 76. I got to have power throughout the lineup, and it starts with Trout.
That's good point.
Plus, I like eating fish, so it works out. I like tinned salmon, too.
Right. What about Kevin Bass? Nah, never mind. Leroy, who'd you pick?
I'm going pitching. So I won't be a homer and say you Darvish, even though I believe he's always must-see TV. But I'll take the Yankees Tanaka right now. He's lights out. He's guaranteed a win. He's done it 11 times in his first 12 starts.
14.
14 starts? 14.
He's got 2 no decisions.
Okay. He's going to win the Cy Young. He's going to win the Rookie of the Year award. And he'll probably be starting All-Star. Like I said, he's phenomenal, and I think I'm gonna go a different way. Skip it, the everyday player. I'm going with the money pitcher right now. Tanaka, I think he could. I want him in Game 7 of the World Series. So I'll take Tanaka.
Makes sense to me, Kevin. You got one pick, one guy, build your franchise. Who do you got?
I have to go with Michael because I'm on the Mike Trout train. I just see a guy that's a 5-tool player. He can do anything more than any other player can. The average player can, and just building a lineup around that guy. It's just and a huge threat in the middle of that lineup. You just can't pass up on a player like Mike Trout.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I'll just throw out a couple other names that crossed my mind. I'm not saying I'd take him or not, but I think Andrew McCutchen deserves some of the discussion if you're talking about 5-tool players. Guy does it all. I think he could go into any of the winning team lineups and instantly be an MVP. Well, he is an MVP, of course, even with the Pirates. But and then the other one, we forget about him, but Yasiel Puig is still pretty young. He's starting to get his act together, at least on the field. You're hearing a little less about him.
He's becoming more mature.
All those things. What would you got to say, Kevin?
He's becoming more mature though as the season progresses. So it's not a bad choice.
No love for your boy George Springer, David?
Not yet.
What about Jose Altuve?
Springer's
Dude, that guy could. I like Jose Altuve. He can hit.
I'm going to go with Carlos Correa probably before I go with Springer. But I haven't seen enough of Correa yet. You'll hear about him shortly.
All right.
Well, so moving off of baseball, we always like to talk a little non-baseball as our last topic, just to round out the show. And everybody is well aware of the Spurs versus Heat finals. San Antonio Spurs, my wife's team from her hometown, took it to the Heat and LeBron and company. And so now the key here is what's going to happen to LeBron. If I understand it, he's got an out of his contract. He can opt out, become a free agent. Will he get the kind of money he wants by going somewhere else? Is he going to have to settle to sign a big contract with another team? What do you think? Two-part question. What do you think he should do, and what do you think he's going to do? I want to make Kelvin go last, so don't say anything yet, Kelvin, because I know you got a lot to say about it. So we'll start with Leroy on this one. What do you think about LeBron, and where is he going to play next year?
You leave Miami. Miami's too old. The ideal to me would be either Chicago or the Clippers. Chicago, they can amnesty Carlos Boozer. I'm hoping that if Derrick Rose is healthy, a healthy Derrick Rose and Butler, LeBron, and you got Joe Kim with Taj Gibson, and you can get some spares to come off the bench. The Clippers, you hear that sign trade, basically it would be Blake for LeBron on the sign trade to play with Chris Paul. But he probably won't stay out east because it's so tough to play at the West. And if he played with the Chicago Bulls, I mean, hey, you got Chicago plays some defense, and they're young. And my dark horse would also be the Washington Wizards, because if they can sign Martin Gortat back, you listen to the lineup. They could have Bradley Beal, John Wall, LeBron, Nene, and Gortat. No one beating that. So I leave Miami, and I would probably do Chicago, Washington, or the Clippers.
Might have a good point about him staying in the East, and I do think he leaves Miami as well. Michael, where you got LeBron going?
Well, I had mentioned this, I think, on an early episode of This Week in Sports, so I'm kind of keep it brief. He stays in Miami, and I'll tell you why. Why the hell else would you want to leave somewhere that's 85 degrees year-round, that's tax-free, your kids are in school, it's a good school system. Yeah, the team around him is aging, but you can get rid of those guys quicker than, you can have a LeBron stay like that. He's going to opt in. He already said that he's not going to opt out, if I'm not mistaken, unless those reports were, completely and utterly false.
I think he said he's making a decision after vacation. That's what I heard.
We all remember what happened the last time there was a decision.
Right.
A whole entire city went up in flames, it seemed like.
LeBron is not worried about money. He'd worry about championships.
He stays in Miami. He's got unfinished business. Like I said, his kids are in a good school system down there. It's 85-degree weather. Why would he want to go anywhere else, especially one that actually has a winter? I mean, if you go to D.C., yeah, that'd be a cool lineup, and I'd be all right with that since I write for DCSK. But do you really want to spend a cold winter in D.C. when if you back in Miami it's 85?
You're leaving Miami. You leave Miami to win.
He's got 2 in Miami. He can stay in Miami and win 2 more.
He is all about championships right now.
I'd be interested to see if he stays in Miami to try to win more on his own, or try if some of the other guys.
He said that we're
a mercenary. You gotta go.
He's got 2 more to go.
Moving on to Kevin. Kevin, what do you think about LeBron?
I think there's two teams I wish he should go to. One, I had this gut instinct that Houston Rockets could play a huge role in this because Jeremy Lin, Elmer Essex are have expiring contracts. Chandler Parsons might be leaving, not sure yet. So seeing Dwight Howard and LeBron on the same court together in the same jersey.
With James Harden.
Right. Yes, and James Harden.
Now I've heard that Chandler Parsons is actually a possibility of landing in Dade County to play with LeBron. So I mean there's all kinds of rumors going around about that.
Yeah. And there's one more team, even though they would probably never ever be able to afford him, the Charlotte Hornets, because seeing him on a team with Michael Jordan as the owner, that would be fantastic and amazing to see. I'm pretty sure the Hornets would sell every seat and every game. So
I paid to see practice to see if Jordan lined up against him in practice.
That'd be amazing. They would probably just come early for the practice to see a one-on-one against those two.
That's right. All right. Let's go to our number one LeBron fan, the guy who was crying tears all week. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Kelvin, what do you want to see LeBron do? What do you think he should do?
First of all, let's get this straight. I didn't cry for a week. I only cried the night they lost. But anyways, I'll give you 3 teams he could wind up on other than Miami. Number 1, first team that he would go to, Houston. Want to know why? Melo's going with him if he goes to Houston. It's going to be Howard, Melo, Harden, James on the floor. Those 4 plus 1 more. Who's the 5th person? Don't know. It's being talked about right now. Second team, surprise team, Philadelphia 76ers. I lost my headphones. Philadelphia 76ers. Go look up this article. It's on warroomsports.com. They just posted it today. Great read. It's 12 reasons why LeBron could land in Philadelphia. Great read. Go read it. And then my third team, OKC. He ends up playing with Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant gets Kevin Durant over the hump. They trade Westbrook to Miami.
I like that.
And he plays in OKC, and him and Kevin Durant just tear the league apart one by one. That's it. But here's what I think happens. All big 3 opt out. They re-signed for less money. Birdman's going to opt out. It's already been said. Birdman is opting out. They're losing Battier. He's retiring. He's going to comment with ESPN like Mark Jackson right now. He's going to be a commentator. He'll soon be a coach. He'll be the next player coach you see in the league coaching. You've got expiring contracts of Beasley. You can cut Greg Oden. He didn't do anything. So all three of them re-sign. Dwayne Wayne comes off the bench next year. He's no longer a starter. He comes off the bench, just like Manu Ginobili. Eric Spoelstra's got to take the page out of the Spurs book, bench Wade. You bring in another player to play with him, and it will be Carmelo Anthony playing in Miami as he replaces Dwayne Wade in that starting lineup.
Guys, good thoughts. There might not be a team in the NBA that we didn't name in that entire segment.
The Mavericks.
One. But, hey, we got to wrap it up. I want to thank you guys. Really appreciate the thoughts. It was really fun to talk. It's not a fun subject, but to talk about Tony Gwynn and the fun memories and the excitement he provided, baseball, and just good discussion all around. So, and thank you, fans, for tuning in to our show. We invite you to check out sports-kings.com for all the latest news across sports, and then /reading between the seams, which is a link right off that page for all the latest baseball news. Until next week, we'll see you then, and thanks to the panelists, and good night.